When the party of adventurers travel far into the Serpent Hills, deep into an ancient tomb, they discover that they've wasted their time once again, as VARRAM the White does not have the dragon mask. Heck, he doesn't even have a stat block. In today's video, we'll try to fix the first part of Death to the Wyrmspeakers episodes. The first episode of 2 episodes with the same name, which is the third one. You're watching Loose and Dice, and I'm your bard, Volkert. Okay, let me provide you with the main points of this video. First, I will tell you a story, a side quest from my run of this campaign, which served as sort of a prequel to episode 3. It's possible that it might not make a lot of sense in your game, but maybe it will inspire you to do something that suits you more. And by the way, this side quest was my way of incorporating the cult attack from the Cult Strikes Back episode, so that should be interesting. Second, we'll talk about the locations of this chapter, like BOARESKYR Bridge and Serpent Hills. Third, I think that the mask should be retrievable. As I said in my introduction video for this module, I don't see any reason to troll your players by constantly not giving them what they're after, specifically the masks. Fourth, we'll talk about the divination pool. It's important. And lastly, we'll try to do something with the character of VARRAM the White, because the lack of features in the personality of this Wyrmspeaker, one of the 5 leaders of the massive cult that threatens to destroy the world, is almost insulting. The prequel side quest. I came up with this little side story when I was flipping through the book, trying to wrap my head around the structure of my campaign. I was thinking about how to implement the Cult Strikes Back episode in my story, and I realized that I wanted to go more creative than simply throwing assassins into my players. Overall, it's a good idea for the cult to try and stop the heroes, but I wanted to do more than that, and at least occasionally show that the heroes are not the only threat in the eyes of the cult, and they harass and attack the settlements too. This time it was Waterdeep that would suffer from the attack, so sometime before the events kicked in, and my player characters were sightseeing around the city, they heard an announcement about the great illusionist Maximilian, who was going to perform in the Field of Triumph in a few days. It was before they even sailed north for the first quest. As the party approached Waterdeep on the ship, they saw signs of turmoil, screams and fire. They soon learned that the North Ward was attacked by dragons some hours ago. A dead griffon lied on the street, his smashed rider nearby. People were crying. Clerics of Plinth helped the common folk, while the clerics from major temples tended to more noble people and guards. Wizards were putting out the fires. As they approached the site, they saw a dead body of a green dragon crushed onto a rooftop of a building, his scales burned with spells. He was slain by Vajra Safar, the Blackstaff, and her wizards. I used her in my game as a little side character, and even though this attack will turn out to be a bait for the adventurers, it still shows that the players are not the only ones always in the center of events. Other people fight their own battles too, and sometimes win, of course. Anyway, the party learns that Maximilian, the Great Illusionist, has been given breathtaking performances for about a week. Illusions of sky battles, fireworks, and magical patterns seen all over the city. Today he created illusions of dragons, weakening the vigilance of the guard. Then the real dragons showed up, and people didn't realize it right away, hence so many victims. Maximilian was nowhere to be found after that. The party went on to investigate this, and found out the real illusionist, who was actually famous and well known to Vajra, is dead. The clues masterfully placed by the villain led to a nearby little stronghold of a minor lord. The lands around it were destroyed by a dragon attack as well. The party was saluted by the lord, and as soon as they entered, they smelled a setup. They tried confronting the lord, but his image dissolved in the air. A black dragon then appeared in this massive hallway, followed by the real mastermind behind these shenanigans, Eldrin, the dragonborn red wizard. No illusions this time. Boy, I have to say, it was an epic fight. There were only 2 players that time, a fighter and a rogue, an assassin. And the fighter went unconscious pretty much right away, so the assassin had practically done all the work by herself. She had quite a few tools up her sleeve by that point. Talis, Wand of Blizzard, Vajra's Wand of Anti-Magic Field, a hidden blade, and a black dragon mask. And the mask is exactly what Eldrin wanted, but it was also exactly what helped Sully the assassin survive. While Sully, wearing a dragon mask, had an epic duel with a black dragon, Eldrin was dancing around invisible, trying to steal the mask right off her face. She gave the dragon quite a few scratches. Then she cast Anti-Magic Field, disabling Eldrin's invisibility. Then she cast Blizzard, trying to retreat, but the black dragon was faster and he landed right between Sully and her dying friend. And while Eldrin was trying to catch up with them, Sully used the mask to talk to the dragon, and she came up with tons of lies, confusing the young dragon enough to surprise him, jump on his back, and finish him off with a critical hit. When she landed on her feet though, she saw Eldrin holding a dagger to her friend's throat. Threats and bargains didn't work this time. Eldrin cast Hypnotic Pattern, and when Sully woke up, her friend was dead and the mask gone. Now you might say, Folkert, what the hell? You tell us the players don't get enough masks and then you go ahead and take their only mask away from them? Well, yeah, but they take active part in this. They matter in this story. I didn't plan on 100% taking the mask away. I created an open-ended conflict and gave my players the opportunity to participate in it. They could have left the mask under the protection of the Blackstaff or the Harpers. And lastly, I did give them opportunities to take control over the other masks too, later in the game. If anything, it will make those little victories even more sweet. Anyway, later the entire party was gathered up once again. They brought the fighter back to life in a temple, and naturally they wanted to pursue the Red Wizard. This is when they asked the Harpers for help, and the Harper agents got the information telling that Aldrin works for VARRAM the White, one of the Wyrmspeakers, and that he has lost the white mask, and they both were seen near the BOARESKYR bridge. Basically, that was the start of what the book offers. Instead, now my players had tons of motivation to go on this quest, and they felt like they were choosing to go themselves because they asked for this information, and there it was. BOARESKYR Bridge. This settlement is barely mentioned here, but it still was picked as a starting point for this little quest. It's a little weird to me because it's pretty far from the Serpent Hills, and the really standout feature of this place, the statues of Cyric and Baal, has nothing to do with the story. If a player will want to make a history check, you're a little screwed because the book doesn't provide any information about this legendary battle. And why would it? Like I said, it has nothing to do with the story. By the way, Cyric wasn't even a god when he killed Baal. This bridge and the lack of information about it in 5th edition actually nudged me towards reading the Avatar novel series. This legendary battle takes place in the 3rd book of the series. Well, I gotta say I could barely finish the first one. It's awful. If you want, just read the summary and don't torture yourself. Anyway, if your players ask you, the time of trouble was this event when the gods were cast down from the heavens to the ground because Baal, god of murder, stole the tablets of fate from Ao, the CEO of the pantheon of gods, and the tablets was like his favorite thing, so he got really mad. Anyway, some gods were destroyed in the process and some mortals ascended to godhood, which is exactly what happened to Baal and Cyric. Ever since the death of an evil god, the winding water is poisoned all the way downstream and even several miles upstream towards the Serpent Hills. BOARESKYR Bridge numbers about 70 tents and wagons in summer, plus those of visiting caravans, and about half that number in winter. The community exists to provide travelers with food, water, remounts, wagon repairs, and the like. It has evolved into a trading center where goods are exchanged between merchants, or wagons leave one caravan and stop over, awaiting another bound for the same destination they're heading for. Not so long ago, an old ruined fort called Bridgefort was rebuilt into Fort Tamal, funded by the High Overseer of Elturgard, and the community is now mostly centered around this little castle on the riverbank. The law in this place being protected by the Paladins of Elturel. The only useful thing that you can do with this place is to take the opportunity to show your players the effect that the conflict is taking upon the world. Make the place crowded by refugees who lost their homes to dragon attacks, orphans whose parents were taken as slaves. Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide tells us how the paladins seem bored by their duty in this fort, as nothing much happens here. Well, maybe now the High Overseer called the forces back to defend the core lands of Elturgard against dragons, and the small bunch that's left can hardly take care of the rising level of crime. This location is also an interesting option to have a cult assault on the party. A lot of flammable tents and the statues of evil gods can make a spectacular background for a nice battle with, say, a young red dragon. There's also a lot of innocent people to be saved from the fire, putting some more pressure on the players. Perhaps an injured dragon could land on the very bridge and have its final clash with the party there in the crimson lights of sunset. Serpent Hills. Depending on a map and edition that you look at, Serpent Hills are roughly 100 miles away from the BOARESKYR Bridge, which contradicts the Rise of Tiamat module, where it says that the tomb is some 65 miles northeast. Do what you want with this information, I would stick to the official 5th edition map, not that it matters that much. The journey would probably take 3 to 5 days. The encounters on the way are pretty bland, but maybe this is a good thing. I like to sometimes have my players briefly encounter something as insignificant as an unmarked grave, or a weird shrine for no particular reason. Still, now that I talk about it, I think I remember that being me, I've included some kind of a side quest here. The unmarked grave had a ghost that asked to do some final favor for them. This is unnecessary, but if one of your player characters maybe has some incomplete backstory hooks or something, this might be the place to play it out. Just make sure it doesn't drag the game. Maybe have the party camp here and have a chat about the current situation, or remember good old times from their past. A character might play a music instrument, basically roleplay with each other. there. It's always nice to have moments like that. I think it rejuvenates creative thinking and makes a player connect with his characters and the party members. Giving this place some features will help make this brief journey more enjoyable and memorable. Here are some facts about the region. The Serpent Hills is a desolate region of red clay hills and deep, treacherous ravines, featuring stretches of rough, ridged land surrounding tall mesas. Only scrub can manage to grow here, tenaciously clinging to the dry clay. Beneath this perilous territory, filled with serpents and poisonous creatures of all manner, lie the Serpent Ways, a series of intricate, well-guarded tunnels interspersed with caverns and chambers. The passages serve as the main pathways for the folk of Najara through these lands. In general, the serpents don't care who tromps over the hills so long as they stay out of the places under them. So make your players be aware of the snakes to maybe unsettle them a little bit. No need to roll initiative, but a single perception roll should help avoid being bitten by a snake or something like that. A character who gets a bite might suffer the consequence for a couple of days, no need to overcomplicate it. Something as simple as exhaustion or even poisoned condition with constitution saving throws every morning will suffice. It doesn't need to be a setback, just a minor annoyance that adds a little mood to the place. Tomb of DIDERIUS. Tomb of DIDERIUS is a very cool dungeon. Like I said before, the locations in The Rise of Tiamat are very fun by themselves. The statues and the entrance, the mosaic, chimera, the rolling bolt trap and the mummies are all very atmospheric, and they carry the classical D&D dungeon crawl spirit, as well as the UNT hatchery. I have nothing to add here really, and I would probably run it the same way again. The Devils. This is probably the first time the players are going to encounter devils in this campaign, and I think this series needs a separate video on them. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that. But this encounter shouldn't be hard to run. Not much information really available to the players. All they need to know is that the devils are helping the cult, and this should distress them. Try to point out that this is a big deal. They can make this deduction by recalling the description of VARRAM's companions provided at the bridge. Summoning a devil is normally quite a challenge, but Zariel, the current boss of Avernus, has made this task easier for the Red Wizards working for the cult, as she wants Tiamat out of her realm. I suggest you revisit the Nine Hells section of the book on page 10. I think this encounter would be a nice setup before having the players invited to a negotiation with the opposing party of devils. The Barbazu, or the bearded devils that the players meet at this dungeon, are lesser devils, considered a brute force of the Nine Hells. They are extremely violent and ruthless, but in addition to being lawful, as the devils go, these guys exist to follow orders. On top of that, they probably don't have any interest in this world. This is how I would approach the understanding of bearded devils in order to roleplay their interaction. So devils are summoned into this world, and if they're killed, they just go back to the Nine Hells. I would assume it would resemble you logging into an online open world video game. You don't really care about your avatar, and obviously you don't have any real empathy towards other characters. You just have objectives, and if another player comes up to you and tries to chat, it would be normal inside a video game to just ignore him, because in real life it would be weird. I don't know if it makes sense, but I like to try exercises like this to try and shape a bizarre alien behavior when role-playing. Just try it out, maybe it'll provoke some of your own ideas. I just think the devils have to really stand out and be memorable in this story, in any story. The Divination Pool. It's not super clear what exactly you can do with the pool. It would be okay if using the pool section said that it's up to you to decide the exact effect, but instead it just leaves us guessing whether we missed something somewhere in this chapter. Obviously, the intention of the writers was to scare people off by saying that the pool demands a sacrifice of a sentient being. But what if your party's alignment is not good, which is not that uncommon? Or maybe you want to make it easier and make it a treasure sacrifice instead. In any case, the rules of activating is up to you, but what then? Well, given that the pool only deals with the physical world, probably meaning that it can show locations of various objects or people, maybe the near future, I don't really see any game-breaking possibilities. What I did is, knowing my players, I tried to predict what they would most probably ask. This is something I do pretty often on various occasions, and the way my pool worked is it showed images on the black surface of the water. You can make them as obscure as you want. Maybe you want your players to crack some metaphor like those dreams that the characters of A Song of Ice and Fire saga usually get, or just make it straightforward. These are some examples of the notes that I had during the session. What will help us with the cult? An image of a bone devil with his numerous minions, including fellows in dark cloaks with bone patterns. I've picked this image so that when they encounter these devil worshippers later on, they won't freak out right away. When will Tiamat come to the world? The pool would show the first melting snow in some well-known location of the north. Obviously it matched my timeline and my understanding of how much time was left before the ritual. You get the idea. My players asked something something like, "Where are the dragon masks?" So I showed them. The blue mask somewhere in a stone tower surrounded by an endless green labyrinth, the green mask in a forest covered in mist, and an image of an elf in purple robes, who looks a lot like the king of elves from the council. And finally the white mask in Waterdeep in the hands of a tiefling woman and member of the Zentarim. So all this once again made my players responsible for all the future quests. They will use their connections to send scouts, gather intelligence, and pinpoint the locations of the masks. My players were all members of the Harpers, and it really helped them feel like ones. Retrieving the white mask was a great opportunity for the assassin to use her infiltration expertise and forge an invitation to a party at a noble villa. It was a James Bond-styled mission to find a vault, steal the mask, and get away. VARRAM the White. To be honest, and unfortunately, VARRAM the White doesn't play any role in the story and serves purely as a reason to visit the tomb. The location itself doesn't contribute to the story either. The only thing that could possibly be of at least some use is the divination pool, and even that the authors encouraged you to skip. So this is the easiest option of how to dispose VARRAM in a somewhat respectful fashion. When he is forced to provide crucial information about the cult, some Tiamat bestowed magic triggers and burns VARRAM from the inside, preventing him from ruining her plans. Believe me, this is better than presenting him as a whiny little guy who spits out the information to your players right away. Long, detailed interrogation scenes with torture is rarely a good idea also, and I honestly hate when players want to do that. This guy is one of the 5 most powerful figures in an organization that is about to bring doom to the world. He has to have powerful personality, but considering the fact that he appears in the story for several minutes makes carefully fleshing him out a waste of time. So I would at least make him a mysterious, stoic person with a very strong faith in what he does, and just have him not share anything with the players. Just don't talk to them. Let him accept his failure, but don't let him put his life higher than the goals of his entire life. He's evil and insane, but he's got to be smart and charismatic. Otherwise, he would sort of stain the reputation of the cult in the eyes of your players. And when that happens, it belittles the achievements of your players. If the players fight losers, it makes them seem less like winners. Maybe have them deliver him to Waterdeep, where wizards and other powerful figures will extract some useful information from him off camera, if that's what you want. Obviously, you can have better ideas on what to do with this guy. If this is the case, share your stuff in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.